and the state said that they had to meet off campus, so because they didn't have a record of it, like, I guess you have to have a record if you go into the White House.
So attorney for Trump defendant Michael Roman Ashley Merchant was at a Georgia Senate hearing investigating DA Fani Willis. This thing is so juicy, it just keeps making twists and turns. I had heard a couple days prior that they were also investigating this very fact, but it seems that Fani Willis and potentially Nathan Wade both made trips to the White House.
You'll see highlighted down here at the bottom on November 18th of 22, interview with D.C. White House.
Wow.
8 hours. Do you know what that references?
Based on another motion that was filed in our case.
Okay, so it looks like here they're looking at interview with D.C. White House, 11/18/22, 8 hours at $250 an hour for a price of $2,000. So they were getting paid. Oh, here we go. Then there's also, which I saw this, travel to Athens, conference with White House counsel, 5/23. So that's actually a different date from that. So they've been in contact with the White House. 8 hours, $2,000. Now these are filings from Nathan Wade. Yes, law offices of Nathan Wade.
Based on another motion that was filed in our case and the arguments that were made by the DA's office, I believe that was when they met with the Department of Justice. They met with the January 6th committee. So one of the co-defendants filed a motion to try and get some documents, and the state had to respond. It was a motion to compel. I was there for it. I joined it, but I didn't litigate it. And the state said that they had to meet off campus, so because they didn't have a record of it, like, I guess you have to have a record if you go into the White House. And so they met with the January 6th committee off campus, and they said they had a really hard time getting that meeting, and they had to have someone who had some source or something to get them to agree to the meeting. But that's what. So the motion to compel was based on this entry, and this entry in response, they said they were meeting with the DOJ and someone with January 6th.
Wow.
Okay. There's also an entry May 23rd, 22.
So is that a conflict of interest if they actually were invited to the White House and had a meeting with the vice president, and then not too long thereafter they filed this case on Trump and his co-defendants? Is that a possible leading of the DA's office in Fulton County to make a move on behalf of the federal government and their political opponents, which would, in this case, be Donald J. Trump?
Travel to Athens conference with, what is that, White House?
Yes, and we've tried to figure out what and who that was, because there was something happening at UGA Law School, and so we just assumed that it was someone that was there, and that's why they met there. But I don't know.
Do you have reason to suspect, or can you confirm whether or not Ms. Willis or Mr. Wade were coordinating with the Biden White House in the course of this investigation and prosecution?
I mean, the discovery, they've got, a lot of our discovery involves the January 6th. I mean, a lot of what we have in discovery is the same stuff that other places have. So they had to have gotten it from somewhere. And they also, they read a lot of the testimony. They played testimony in the special purpose grand jury. So, I don't know how they got all of that, but they got it somehow.
Wow.
And then, there's one of the other things I did was I did open records for the White House access, and we had records that Ms. Willis and the mayor of Atlanta were at meeting with the vice president.
Okay, and so this is the access history. How does that work? The White House keeps records of anybody that comes in and
Absolutely.
has any kind of official meeting for sure.
Yes, and my understanding is it's highly regulated who can access the White House, and so you have to apply in person or apply ahead of time, and then they give you a time when you make the appointment, and they give you a time when you're allowed to be in and when you have to be out by, and they track you. And I mean that makes sense. They don't want anybody lingering in the White House, but they keep that, and so they're called WAVE records, I believe is what they're called, and I'm not sure what that's an acronym for, but they're publicly available. They're open records.
And this record,
The appointment was made on the 24th of February 2023 and app start 2028. So this is after the cases started. Started in 2024, 2023. That appointment was made on 4 days' notice. The start of the appointment was 2/28/2023, and the end of it was 2/28/2023. Meeting with the POTUS, Vice President Kamala Harris. Location was the Vice Presidential Residence, side lawn tent. Okay. Release 5/30/2023. What was happening there? Because, it's funny because the vice president likes to throw a lot of hip hop parties. So a lot of random people end up at the vice presidential residence, right? I think Fat Joe was there and a couple other people. I wonder if this was one of these parties which could also then double as some type of meeting. That would be kind of a good cover. Anytime you need to bring somebody in, you're like, yeah, I'm inviting everybody, especially you all in Fulton County that are going to be trying this case. Interesting.
that's shown on the screen shows Fani Willis was a visitor with POTUS. I presume that's Vice President of the United States.
Yes, it was.
And what was the date of that back in, was that February sometime of 23?
February 28, 2023.
Is that before the indictment?
Yes.
Okay. Any further explanation of why Ms. Willis was meeting with the Vice President of the United States?
No. I know Dexter Bonds, and I believe that's the same one that Mr. I think it's Dixon, the mayor of Atlanta, was also there.
Okay.
So in addition to there being rumors about Nathan Wade being at the White House, what reason would Fani Willis have to be at the White House for a particular meeting? There seems to be a lot of coordination between the Fulton County DA's office, who just so happens to be prosecuting Donald J. Trump and his co-defendants for election interference, and the White House. Now, if it can be proven that Fani Willis and Nathan Wade had these meetings at the White House, it's a much more compelling argument for why you could say there's a conflict of interest, even more so than any relationship or affair that they might have had, which is why it's odd that the conversation has devolved into this, because people use this as a dodge to get away from whether or not it's actually a valid case, a valid reason to take her off of this case, investigating election fraud in Fulton County. If this is true, that she met with the White House prior to filing charges against Donald Trump and his co-defendants, then I think for sure she should be taken off the case. That would be one way to ensure a fair trial for these 19 people. But we'll see if that happens, because, as I said before, it's hard to prove that if you focus on the salaciousness, you know what I mean? So anyway, not to mention, there's also been another alleged person that works within the DA's office that has ties to the White House. Now, like I said, this is all alleged, but it does seem strange that this person could be viewed as sort of a liaison between the White House, just based on their political connections. Jeff DeSantis, the county's deputy district attorney with professional experience far greater than the average county employee. Mind you, he works at Fulton County now. DeSantis worked on Willis's 2020 campaign and was a former executive of the director of the Democratic Party of Georgia. With extensive knowledge of campaign finance law, he was also the deputy director of compliance for the DNC, according to his official bio. Jeff also worked for candidates in 30 states running for a variety of offices, including President of the United States Senator, Governor, United States Representative, Attorney General, District Attorney, and Mayor, as well as for a national political party committee. He has served as a campaign manager, media consultant, pollster, press spokesman, research director, and policy advisor. So if we put two and two together, it seems that there are a lot of connections that lead back to the White House. Like, I understand even maybe Fani Willis taking a trip to the White House, but you also have Nathan Wade. They also have somebody who is connected to a major political party, one that happens to be occupying the White House. So with all these things and you add them up, is it possible that this is why they are on such a reckless mission? Whoever allegedly put this charge to them to prosecute this case, they weren't thinking they would be in a relationship at any point, I'm pretty sure, and be under their lives being under scrutiny and so much being highlighted that you can't help but think they probably regret having any of these connections. But it remains to be seen. I would like the White House to come out, or at least the vice presidential residence to come out and say, why was Fani Willis at the White House? Is there a particular reason she needed to be there? And then subsequently filed this prosecution. Interesting. But let me know what you think about it in the comments. If you like this video, like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell notification for all uploads. If you want to watch more, please watch one of these videos down below. This is Faucette Media.